And now let's begin. Hey guys, Ranger here, and welcome back to another reaction review. And this is to I think the 11th episode of MLP Season 9, which is Student Counsel. I don't know anything about this episode other than I know that Starlight Glimmer is in it. And I know that because whenever I was recording the episode, I saw over here on my desk, I have my 73 Chrysler New Yorker sitting here, and in the display base I saw the reflection of, like a faint reflection of Starlight, so I know she's in it, but I don't know what it's about. Student Counsel, I have no idea. So let's dive in and see what happens, and hopefully this is a really good episode. I hope it is. So let's begin, starting the video. Okay, this is one of my favorite episodes of this season. Hooves down! This is one of my favorite episodes of this season. Already. This is totally one of my favorite episodes of this season. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay, there's quite a bit of things to go over with this episode. Okay. There are some interesting things to talk about with this episode. Different things featured in this episode. There's more than just one. First off, this episode tackles the concept of the responsibility that Starlight has as a student counselor. And this is honestly an interesting dynamic. This is honestly an interesting setup, and there's multiple ways to view this, and I'm going to try to cover each one. On one hand, Starlight, she was putting too much on her plate. She was putting too much on her plate, and she wasn't leaving any time for herself or really for anyone else in her life because she was staying so busy. Trixie, of course, saw this, and she wanted Starlight to kind of take a break from all of the busyness that she had and just kind of let loose and have fun. And she wanted them to be able to hang out together because since Starlight was putting so much on her plate, it wasn't allowing her really any free time for anything. However, Starlight felt that she had a responsibility. It wasn't just that she wanted to help the students, but I think that she felt that she had to. You know, she was made the student counselor, and so she was taking that responsibility seriously. And I really have to admire that about her. But she was putting too much on her plate. And there is an interesting setup with this, and it's kind of a two-way thing. First off, this was one of those. This honestly shows that while Starlight was trying to help and trying to be a good student counselor, you can't help. She couldn't help all the students all the time, and this was something that I think Starlight learned, and this is something that whenever she told Silverstream that the student counselor's office was closed, the school was closed, and that she needed to try to figure the problem out for herself, there's an interesting thing here, an interesting setup. Number one, Starlight, I don't blame her that she wanted to try to help. I don't blame her whatsoever. And Starlight made the remark to Trixie that she wanted to use her checkered past to try to help the students and use it to her advantage. I don't blame her for that. It's one of the things that I love about Starlight is, while she's not fond of her past, and it basically has left a scar on her heart, she still uses that to help her to move forward and uses that to help her to help others. But as a student counselor, she was trying to help as many students as she could. And I really respect that she was trying to take as much time as she could to try to help as many as she could. I really admire that. But at the same time, she wasn't allowing herself any time to herself or to her other friends. And it wasn't just that she had a responsibility to the students, she has a responsibility to herself and to her friends as well. And this was an episode, a setup where she had gotten too busy with another task in her life, and it was consuming all of her time, and she was neglecting the rest of her friends and other tasks that they had put on her, particularly here Trixie, that had put different tasks upon Starlight. And the interesting thing here, some would say that Starlight was in the wrong. Now, one thing that I mentioned is here, one way to look at this is Starlight neglected her job. Now, please hear me out here. I'm not picking sides here. I'm trying to explain what comes to mind. First, you can look at it. I can look at it like Starlight had a responsibility with her job. Trixie kind of wanted her to kind of slack off a bit and take a break from it. And so Starlight did exactly that. As a result, someone that was under her care, Silverstream, ended up making kind of a bad choice, what they thought was a bad choice. And they thought that it put her in danger. Starlight beat herself up for this, saying that she shouldn't have slacked back from work from the responsibility that she had. However, and Trixie herself admitted that she shouldn't have got her to do this, that she shouldn't have got her to slack back whenever it was her responsibility. However, while you can say that this is a thing, and one could say you need to stick with your responsibilities, that's not 100% what is going on here. That's not the full story. The other dynamic that is going on here is Trixie saw that Starlight was being consumed by trying to be a student counselor, trying to help all of the students. And she wanted Starlight to take a break and have some time for herself and have some time for and have some time for her and the rest of their friends and just, live her life. Honestly, I can't blame Trixie for this whatsoever. Realistically, Trixie's right. It is, and I have seen this. It's easy for people to get consumed. It's easy to get consumed with something like that. I've seen people get consumed before and they begin to neglect other people around them. You have to learn that there is a balance, and you have to try to find time for other things and other people around you. And the thing is, another message that I personally see in this episode is that you can't help everybody, and you can't hold everybody's hand, or in this case, hoof or claw. Silverstream kept coming to Starlight. And the problem, and there is a problem here. Now, don't know, it's not in the writing. This is actually very realistically told. The problem is that as a student counselor for Starlight, it's hard to understand when exactly a student will refer to as a problem as a big problem. And this itself is a problem. This is a real life issue. And it's not just with students. It's not just with student counselors. This can be something in psychology. Sometimes a person may come to you with a matter that they deem is of extreme dire importance. But in actuality, it's just a minor thing. But they are looking at it like a big thing. And so if you tell them or choose not to assist with that thing because you don't think it's that big of a deal, they themselves, the other person, will think it's a big deal. And so it's hard to decipher whenever someone, even if one person has what appears to be a minor task at hand, they may be looking at it as a much more bigger issue. And so it's hard to decipher what someone will decide, what they will do if you choose to kind of take a step back. Realistically, I think that Starlight did a good thing whenever she told Silverstream that she trusts her to make the decision herself, that she's intelligent, and that she's sure that she can figure it out on her own. And honestly, I really relate. I can see this being, I can honestly relate to this, and I can see this being a real thing because it's not Starlight's responsibility to hold Silverstream's hoof the entire time. It's not and honestly, you can kind of look at this as a friend. You can kind of look at it as a parent. They're not always going to be able to, it's not their responsibility to hold your hand throughout every decision that you make, to help make a decision for you. There are times whenever they themselves are going to have to make a decision that you're not going to be involved in. And there are times whenever you're going to have to tell them you need to make this decision on your own. It's a step in growth, in growing. It's trying to help someone to make decisions all the time is going to make them rely on you and count on you to make those decisions for them. And they're not going to be able to make decisions on their own, and they're going to panic whenever they think they have to. And so there are times whenever you have to take a step back and trust that they'll make a decision. They're not always going to make a good one. They're going to make bad decisions, but it's those mistakes that they learn from, and it's a part of growth. It's a part of that development. And so honestly, I don't feel that Starlight was in the wrong here. She is a student counselor, yes, but there was many different things going on here. There were other students I know that were coming to her with major issues. And this problem that Silverstream had here was a kind of a minor issue. She was looking at it as a kind of a larger issue. But Starlight told her that Starlight needed to take a break. She needed to take some time. And this is honestly a thing, realistically, because again, Starlight is a student counselor. She has to be in a good mental and psychological perspective to be able to make good judgment calls. The more stressed she becomes, and honestly, I think this goes for anybody. It doesn't matter if you are a student counselor or if you are a psychiatrist. It's important to be in a good, heck, it could be, it could be your friend, or a job or a relationship, whatever. You have to be in a good mental and emotional and psychological state to be able to make a good choice. The more stressed you are, the less likely you are to make a good choice, the more likely you are to make a bad decision. And so you have to be in a good place mentally to be able to have a good thought process and be able to think things through logically and civilly and maturely. And Starlight was becoming stressed. Just everything, her friends and her student council job, all of that was just kind of combining together, and it was making her stressed, and it was making her begin to lose focus. And so both aspects of her life was being sacrificed and was falling apart here. She was willing her students to hurry the freak up and get out so she can go and do some other things in her other life, but she was neglecting that as well, and it was stressing her out. She was losing focus, she was losing track of things, and so it was affecting her mentality. And as a result, both things that she was trying to tend to were suffering because of that. And there was something basically she had to draw a line. She had to draw a line and set boundaries for herself. And honestly, that is important. And Silverstream here, she's not a bad guy, nor is she stupid. She does have intelligence, but she did here come to Starlight for what we would see as a minor issue. Maybe not worthy of going to a student counselor, but just asking someone, hey, what do you think? But this is a real thing, because there are times whenever someone can ask you an opinion on something that you yourself might say, well, this is a minor thing, but they themselves would think it's of extreme importance. And so it's hard to decipher, whenever you respond to someone's question like this, whenever you respond to someone, it's hard to decipher how they will respond, how they will take that. You don't know how they're going to act, how they're going to respond to that. And I know that Starlight is a student counselor, but it's not her job. It may be her task to help counsel the students, but it's not her job to hold their hand or their hoof, or claw all the time. There are times, realistically, whenever a student is going to have to try to make a decision on their own. And, talking to people, it does help. It's just like real life. You go through something, talking to people can help. Talking to a friend or something can help, but they're not going to be able to completely help you through something. They might help you some of the way, but the rest of the steps, you're going to have to take yourself. And that's just like with anything in life. You have to be able to take the steps on your own. You can't expect everybody to help make those steps for you. You have to be able to take the steps. They may help you and support you, and help give you guidance, but some of the steps you're going to have to make on your own. And this is the case here with Silverstream. There was something she was told by Starlight, and that she needed to make that decision on her own and figure it out on her own. And this is something that that Silverstream learned. She learned about that, and as a result, she discovered something. She discovered about the cockatrices, and about how docile that they can be. But had it not been for, if Starlight had just continued to try to help her the way that she did, Silverstream wouldn't know that right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I can totally understand Starlight feeling like she made a mistake because she didn't offer to help, because she decided that she wasn't going to. I can see her perspective on it. But at the same time, I don't feel that Starlight should beat herself up over it, because I think that what she did is realistic, because you can't hold everyone's hand all the time. There are times whenever people are going to have to make a stand on their own. You might be there to help and support them and cheer them on, and you might even offer guidance and tips, but there are steps they themselves are going to have to take, and they shouldn't expect you to make every single step for them and to make the journey for them. They are going to have to make that journey themselves. You might be there with them, but there is decisions they're going to have to make on their own. And so this is definitely a challenge, because in real life, I know this has happened. Students have come to student counselors, or people have went to psychiatrists, or people have come to their friends with things that they themselves wasn't really sure of, but in actuality it was just kind of minor things, but they acted like it was a big deal. So yeah, as a student counselor, yeah, I can say Starlight does have to put up with a lot. She has to put up with different things from different students, so she has to try to look at things from a very heavy psychological from a very psychological standpoint. And she has to try to look at things from an unbiased perspective and a balanced perspective, and try to offer the best advice that she can. And so yeah, she does have a lot on her plate with that. But it is important for her to take some time to herself and, enjoy her life and enjoy hanging out with her friends as well. And so that's my personal thought on this particular episode here. I can totally understand Trixie here. I mean, she was missing her friend, and so she was feeling like they weren't really hanging out completely. And so, they weren't hanging out as much. So she wanted Starlight to take a break. And she tasked Starlight with all this stuff. Starlight was so busy with student council that she completely forgot about the party, and she completely forgot about everything. And she felt bad for it completely, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out this picture right here in the background. On the wall, it looks like a goat screaming. I'm sorry, it does. It looks like a goat screaming. I'm sorry. I have to say, I felt bad for Starlight in this episode, and I felt bad for Trixie as well, because I could understand and relate to both characters here. Starlight she wanted to help the students, but she wanted to spend time with her friends as well, but she felt that she had a major responsibility as a student counselor to help the students, and she didn't want to let the students down. She wanted to be there for them, and she did not want to let them down. And I think there's a possibility, and this is theoretical, but I'm also trying to look at it from a psychological standpoint. I think that part of, and again, this is theoretical, but it does seem very likely and probable, that part of the reason why that Starlight was so dedicated to the students could stem from Starlight's own past. She felt before that she had been betrayed, that she had been let down whenever the cutie mark took Sunburst from her, and she felt that she didn't have anyone at the time, and so she felt that she was alone, and she didn't have anyone to go to. But here she has a chance to be there for these students, and I think that there's a possibility that the reason why she was so dedicated and focused on them was because she didn't want them to feel like she did. Part of her emotions from her past is driving her in the present to make the decisions and make her have the devotion and dedication to the students that she has, because she doesn't want them to go through the same thing that she did. And she also feels bad, and she's trying to spend time with her friends, but it's complicated. It's a very complicated issue. I did find it hilarious though at the end whenever Silverstream made the remark that Starlight wasn't really that much help before with the other stuff, and Starlight is just like, "Are you freaking serious? All the helping you I did, and it was of no help." That's not saying whatsoever that Starlight isn't a good student counselor. She's still new to it, and I think that it's still a learning process for her as well. I think that it is a learning process for her, and that there are things that she herself is still learning. But overall, I have to say I really love this episode. It's definitely one of my most favorites, one of my personal favorites of this season. And like I said, Starlight, you can look at the story in multiple different ways. And like I said, Starlight, I do feel personally that Starlight was in the right in telling Silverstream that, basically there are times whenever you're going to have to try to make a decision yourself. There's not always going to be someone there to make it for you or to help you make it. There are times whenever you just have to trust your own gut, your own judgment, and try to make the best decision that you can. Or try to, use your own intelligence and try to figure it out. You can't rely on everybody to do it for you. And so I do think that, personally, that Starlight was in the right for that. And now she's decided to try to set some times for the students to be able to see her. And this will be able to give her time for her students and some time in her personal life so that she can hang out with her friends as well. And so I think that this is a really good thing for her. I really do think that it is a really good thing. So hopefully she will no longer be consumed by taking too much time with being a student counselor. Now she'll be able to spend time with her friends as well. And again, I think this will really help to put her in a better mental and emotional state, so that not only can she more enjoy spending time with her friends, but she can help the students and be in a better mental place to be able to make better choices and better decisions to be able to help them. And I think that this episode may also this episode also taught both Starlight and Silverstream another lesson. I think it probably taught Silverstream that, she probably shouldn't come to Starlight for every single question that she has, and that there are times whenever she's probably should try to figure it out on her own without relying on Starlight or anyone else to try to make that decision for her. Starlight, I think, also realized that she can't help every student all the time, and that she can only go so far, she can only do so much, and that sometimes she's going to have to just let them make a choice on their own. Sometimes something that she can help them with is beyond her control. It's out of her reach, and she's just going to have to trust them to make their own choice. And so I really think overall that was a really good concept, and I really love what they did with this episode. I absolutely love it. But that was my personal thoughts regarding the story of the episode overall. But there are different other things that I wanted to talk about regarding this episode that were just awesome. I love the bracelet that Starlight is wearing. I love it. It's so cool. It looks good on her, honestly. But I also love this episode with Trixie, because Trixie was so adorable and fun in this episode. And relatable. I related to this girl so much in this episode. But this episode was also extremely adorable. Just the Starlight and Trixie in this episode, they were just so adorable in this episode. I absolutely loved it. And like I said, Trixie, she's not foreign to the concept of doing bad, evil things. So this guy here Trixie is just about ready to rip him to shreds. And honestly, I don't blame her. Some people would say that Trixie was in the wrong for getting upset at a student, but you know what? I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this. I'm totally guilty of this. Because here, Trixie was just trying to spend some time with her friend, who she hadn't really got to see too much of, and here this one person just kept interrupting. I'm guilty of this. I'm totally guilty of imagining somebody getting run over by I'm totally guilty of imagining someone getting run over by a steamroller. I'm totally guilty of this. I'm exactly like Trixie here. I also love this bit whenever Rose makes a mention she doesn't know what blooming stick flowers are. And Trixie looks. I don't know if she's supposed to be looking at the audience and breaking a fourth wall here, or if she's supposed to be just looking back casually, like behind her. But I love this scene. It's hilarious. And Rose is adorable here. I mean, my gosh, this is so cute. This is adorable. I think it's kind of funny though because like aren't horses used to make glue, and here she is using glue. So does that mean that she's using the blood of her ancestors for these sticks? She's using the blood of her ancestors. And then whenever Starlight appeared in the room, and she was like, "All right, who's next?" And Trixie is sitting here in the darkness. That's whenever I imagined, oh boy, we're doomed, we're dead, crap's about to go down. She's just sitting there calmly. You know, if someone was sitting there looking more angry, then okay, they're about to rage. But honestly, I think the people that just kind of like Trixie here, that are just sitting there calmly, I think they're the ones that I'm more afraid of. Because you don't know what they're capable of. And again, I relate to Trixie here because Trixie is me. There are two setups here. There are people who can try to remain calm, like Starlight, and try to tone down a situation. And then there are people like Trixie who are more kind of visibly like, the fuck did you say? I'm kind of like Trixie here. I would say I'm kind of a combination of both. But I would say there are a lot of times whenever I'm definitely more like Trixie. And Trixie is like me. Whenever they find out Silverstream is gone, and Starlight is freaking out, but Trixie is like, man, this is me. Like I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. There are people at work right now at my job that if they went missing, this would be me. I would be like Trixie. I would not be at all be like Starlight. I would be like Trixie, like, actually, no, I'd probably be jumping up and down for joy. I would. I would probably be the first suspect that the police would actually interrogate because I'd be the one jumping up and down for joy. I'm Trixie, totally. And one of my favorite aspects of this episode was the whole dynamic between Maud and Mudbriar. I adore this between them. It's so cool. We actually get to see Mudbriar smile more in this episode, but I love just how casual and low-key devoted and worried that Maud was for Mudbriar throughout the entire thing. I love it. Plus, it's such an interesting setup to see these characters here, Starlight, Sunburst, Trixie, Maud, and Mudbriar, just all hanging out and doing this together. It's very, very cool. And like I said, I made the remark that, dang it, whenever Sunburst started blasting the tree over top of Starlight's head, like, yeah. Starlight had to duck. That's what I said. Like, he almost blasted his girlfriend into oblivion. I know I said girlfriend, but could definitely still say, yeah, best friend, of course, but yeah, you can pretty much imagine it however that you want. I also think it's adorable how that the moment that he found out it was her, how he held his hoof out to her so that, to help her stand up. Very, very cute. And then whenever Maud makes the remark that she's not leaving him, and she, like, I love how devoted that she was to Mudbriar here. Like, she totally was not going to leave him. She was willing to be turned to stone if it meant staying there with him, and I love it. The dynamic between Maud and Mudbriar here was really, 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 really fun. Whenever Starlight said that that the cockatrice has turned Mudbriar into a hunk of rock, I love Maud here saying that Mudbriar was a hunk. Yes, yes. And then whenever he makes the mention about and then they're both smiling here, and he makes the mention about he had an appreciation basically for rocks. Maud is just like swoon. Love this. One thing I didn't get to say whenever I was watching this scene, I'm thinking whenever I saw this scene of these two, I was thinking to myself, yeah, Maud is going to play with Mudbriar's rocks later. We know she totally wants to rock his world. and he probably rocks hers too. And she likes it nice and hard. Yep. I'm excited to see fan art of these two after this episode. I'm just so excited to see what people do. But yeah, I love this episode. This is definitely one of my most favorite episodes of the season. I adore this episode. It's fun. It's cute. It's hilarious. It's just... this episode is just so much fun. I love it. And like I said, I enjoy the story with it. I mean, absolutely adore the segments with Maud and Mudbriar. I adore those so much. And I also adore the friendship between Trixie and Starlight. And I adore the friendship / possibly romance between Sunburst and Starlight as well. But I really adore the story for this episode. How it does. And the message, multiple messages actually, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed this episode. It was, again, one of my most favorite episodes of this season, possibly of the entire series. But that's just my personal thoughts. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and that was just my personal thought on the episode itself. But again, thank you to everybody that did this episode. Thank you all so much, and thank you to the writers for writing the dialogue the way that you did and writing these scenarios. Thank you so much. You guys rock. Pun intended. You rock. Okay. Thank you. But again, thank you again also to everybody that joined me. Thank you guys so much. Hope you guys enjoyed. And again, thanks again for joining me. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the next video that I do. Take care.